Well, hello, hello. Time for another Zoom live call today with Whitney Hammond and Theresa Pellizzari. Welcome to Wisdom to Wealth. Our mission is to teach you how to gain control of your money so that your money doesn't take control of you. Good afternoon, Theresa.
Hello,
How are you
Whitney.
today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm just trying to set up my screen here on my live, which I can't see. So I'm flying
Let's
blind
go with
here. So let's start with this show. I can't see, but anyhow, anybody that wants to put any comments below, feel free. So today what we're going to talk about is the value of advice. And this is such a great topic to talk about today because many people are confused about that. And we did have many questions around this subject, so we decided to speak about this today. So it's a fabulous question, and let's start. Let's take a step back here. So education. So if we look at where we start in this business, is that there's a considerable amount of education. So for me, it was 7 years. I've been in the business almost 25 years. And how my education and licensing went back then was licensing for selling products was number one. So that was my first study. But the next part was my CFP. And how that used to work was there was quite a few exams, but the final exam, which was so cool, was 6 hours. I actually sat a 6-hour exam, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just loved it because I just live and breathe this stuff. So it was easy for me to do, but it's very hard for people to do, and it's bell curved. So it's hard to pass. Then I did my CLU. And for people that don't know what a CLU is, that's a charter. It's a charter for life underwriting, and it's a very complicated, heavy tax course that a lot of it focuses around business owners and corporations and structures. And so not very many people have that designation. But if you do find somebody with that designation, that is that's the cream of the crop. That's the one. So that's where we start with the education. So so for me, my career has been about people tapping into my brain for deep knowledge. And the one question that we wanted to focus on today was one of our followers said, how do we convince a client to implement? And I thought, okay, so I haven't come across that, but I thought that's a darn good question. But because for me, people come to me for advice. That's my job. So I don't have to convince them. They're already there, hungry, and wanting to know, like, what do I do? How do I get through this? And everybody's situation is completely different. So for me, just looking at my notes here, so the value advice for me is what I do is I'm building strategies. I'm legally navigating around the income tax, which is always changing. Avoiding unnecessary fees and taxes. That's huge. Running complicated calculators to bring a plan to fruition. Sometimes we use actuaries. Like, it does get very complicated. Diversifying into a massive array of investment choice. There's just so much to navigate through. Handling all the crazy paperwork, there's a ton. There's such a ton that I have to have 3 full-time employees around me to be able to process everything. Coaching the client to keep their eye on the ball and be razor sharp through the continual massive tax changes that we have. And the big point is, the wealthy build their business. So they do what they do, and I do what I do. So they go to a top-notch advisor who will be able to create these wealth strategies and implement them. So our job is not to convince the client to implement a plan. Our job is to interview the family, build the enterprise, create the strategy, bring in other advisors. So we bring in accountants, lawyers, sometimes family social workers, because sometimes families are fighting. It's normal. So let's see. We interview the family. We set up and implement the planning. We monitor and meet on a regular basis. We adjust and guide, and we follow the industry guidelines and the government procedures. So the one thing constant in life is change. Don't get caught with your pants down. There is a big cost to running this baby on your own. Um, and it's your future. Like, this is your future. Your future is in your hands. So stats show that working with a financial advisors, families build 4 times more wealth. So that's my take on the value advice. Theresa, jump in here and let us know your experience with it.
Okay, well, definitely my experience mirrors yours, except that I'm a couple decades behind your experience in your education. However, I am definitely following you as a mentor and currently working on my CFP and my PFA, just so I can juggle some extra designations along the way so that I can also become the expert in those fields. So my belief too is there's a lot of psychology in what we're doing. And so my belief is there's 5 areas that are really important to think about as a foundation before getting into the nitty gritties. And one is, when you're looking for advice, it doesn't matter whether it's to build a house, renovate, buy a car, financial advice, whatever it is, I'm a believer that none of us are as smart as all of us.
Right.
So who do you go to? Who's the expert in that area? Who has the experience? Who has the resources? Who has the education to help guide you or to just even answer your questions? So that would be number 1. Pull on your resources. Number 2 would be, we tend to have opinions and we have facts, and that's okay as long as the facts are primary. Listening to everyone's opinions, when you talk to people and you say, oh, how do you know that's true? Quite often they don't. And so deciphering those opinions. And so if the facts are primary, then go ahead and flow with your opinion once you know those facts. And the third one is utilizing your resources, your relationships, which circles back to number 1. None of us are as smart as all of us. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. We take 15-minute phone calls all the time where people are saying, you know, I'm just starting to think about, while I'm driving down the road, buying a new car, or using my line of credit for this, or remortgaging my house for renovation. And so we can help guide the path so they're doing it as strategically as possible and not leaving money on the table. So the next one is ask yourself, do you trust yourself to implement strategies in a plan without on your own, without leaving money on the table? And that's it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what advice you're asking for and what segment, you don't want to leave money on the table. So pause, take some time and get some input. And then a really important skill set that is important on top of our education is listening and asking questions, so that we can decipher and do a holistic overview of what are your goals. And you might not be thinking of, there's more than one way to get there. So we can help make sure that your goal is met and possibly put some extra money in your pocket. So, and my final thought around, you know, convincing clients, like you said, Whitney, I don't convince clients of anything. That is not my job. My job is to give them the options, the advantages and the disadvantages, make a recommendation, and then it's up to them to decide from there. And generally when people come to us, they've already decided they want to change. So there you have it.
I love it. I love it. And the thing is too, we walk the walk. I mean, it's we've lived this. So for me, with my planning, it's not conceptual. Like I'm not selling a concept. I've I live my own plan. But one example comes to mind of building a deck. I was watching on YouTube, whether I should go with cedar plank or whether I should go with the manufactured wood, which is called composite wood. I had to write that down so I would remember. And I was watching it through YouTube and I thought, man, this looks easy. It all looks easy, and the new tempered glass. And then, I'm getting sucked into that. And I'm like, who am I kidding? I am not going to build that deck. I'm going to call and ask a professional how to do it. So it's the same thing, is that could I build it cheaper? I don't know, maybe, but you know what? I'll mess it up.
Yeah, that's
I'll
why
mess
we
it
don't
up.
do our own dental work.
Yes. So the value of advice is that it is invaluable. And thank you for joining us today. We do want to keep this to 10 minutes, and we're just a minute over because I'd like to put it up on LinkedIn. So we will carry on, and our next conversation will be more on the value advice. So we will continue with this, and I do see there's a bunch of questions, so we will get to them in the next meeting. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye-bye.